Hey guys, Brockshield here. This time in Shadowfang Keep. Shadowfang Keep is what I believe is the best pound for pound dungeon in World of Warcraft. There are several reasons I believe this. Let's start with the loot. Shadowfang Keep isn't pound for pound the best dungeon in terms of loot, but it does very well for a number of reasons. Let's start with the types of mobs being mostly humanoids. Humanoids in World of Warcraft, like these Worgen, humans, etc., undead, those mobs drop cloth, they drop gold, they drop greens at very high rates relative to mobs like these wolves. So SFK, while it's not all humanoids like Scarlet Monastery, it is mostly humanoids, and for that reason does very well in terms of the base loot that you could get. Next, it also has a large number of mobs that you're gathering in these three pools. So, whereas with some dungeons, like if you took SM Library for example, you're getting far less mobs than you do over the course of this entire Shadowfang Keep run, even though it's in the same amount of time. So for those two reasons, you get a large amount of that base loot. Next, in terms of the mobs and their abilities, Shadowfang Keep presents very little for you to have to concern yourself with as you're power pulling. During this run, you'll see I'm not slowed or stunned even a single time throughout the entirety of the run. That's quite a common occurrence when you're running Shadowfang Keep. There is one mob that is not a rare spawn, but an occasional spawn, a Deathsworn Captain, that can apply a Warrior Hamstring debuff on you. That is simply resolved using your Blessing of Freedom if you're a Paladin. Other classes have different utilities for themselves. And the Commander, who's a Paladin himself in this dungeon, he has Hammer of Justice, which is so rare that it hits you because of the level difference and the fact that there's only one mob. It's nothing like these dungeons like RFC and Stockades where you get chain stunned, and nothing like Scarlet Monastery Cathedral where the mages are slowing you quite a bit and require those cleanses to get those off you. For that reason, it's so easy to run this dungeon. It requires such little focus and attentiveness in comparison to these other dungeons. It only adds to the case that SFK is the best pound for pound dungeon in the game. As you see here, I choose, instead of as many power pullers show on YouTube, to round these mobs up into 3 pulls, including that initial pull, but 2 pulls for the main area instead of just 1. It's not because I can't survive, because I can. It's because of, in my extensive testing of this dungeon, I found that the mobs path back approximately 70% of the time when you try and round them up all at once. The reason I say this, and I'll point to the line in the code where it looks like they path back most of the time, is because I leveled all 10 of my alts on the account that Daenerys is on, my druid, from levels 10 through 15 in Shadowfang Keep. Each alt takes 5 hours power leveling in this style of power pull to go from level 10 to 15. In those it takes 3 hours, not 5 hours, 3 hours each. In those 30 hours total, I noticed very quickly initially that while I thought that I might be saving time trying to pull the whole dungeon at once up to Fenris, I realized that I was losing time, because I had the advantage that some of these other power pullers may not have, in that I could alt-tab quickly to my alt and see that the mobs were getting reset in this courtyard. So every time they got reset, I was having to do double work to do this third pull after I would go finish this one that we see after this one. And so I realized quickly, instead of going through that hassle, the best thing to do was to do 2 pulls, excluding the initial one, and round them up here, finish them off, and that way there's no reason to have to worry about them pathing back later. Another reason why Shadowfang Keep is an excellent dungeon pound for pound, and in this way it's the best period, is the chests. In the Shadowfang Keep will always give you 3 chests per run. And as a blacksmith myself, I have access to the silver keys that can open these locked chests at this level. So since you always get 3 chests per run, it's better than any other dungeon that can be power pulled in this style. And when I say this style, I mean you're clearing the dungeon in 2 to 3 pulls. So you think about Stockades, it does well with 2. SM Armory, it does well with 1. Scarlet Monastery Library, 2. But no dungeon that can be pulled in this style has 3 chests. And with those chests, each chest gives you the opportunity to get BOE blues that are very useful in the twink market. While they don't offer the highest level of blues like Shadowfang and Assassin's Blade, they offer that next level down like Feet of the Lynx, which will still sell well, especially depending on your server, if you're on a higher populated PvP server where twinking is a more available and in-demand market. So for me, I speak with first-hand experience. I can tell you 100% I have received twink blues like Feet of the Lynx, which sell very well as they're the best leather twinking items in the level 19 bracket from these chests. So when you imagine pound for pound, if you scaled Shadowfang Keep up to level 29, 39, 49, etc., if you got 3 chests, 3 chances at Edgemaster's Handguards, 3 chances at, Freezing Band, that is an incredibly good dungeon, one that's too good to introduce into the game for balance. In addition to now, we've talked about the chests, we've talked about the base loot, we've talked about the mobs not affecting you. Shadowfang Keep also has the best pound for pound twinking items in terms of their value in the game. When you have both of the best weapons, the best feet, the best in other forms that can come from the chest items in the game in one dungeon, I can tell you in those 30 hours, I received 3 Shadowfangs and 1 Assassin's Blade, a total value on my server of approximately, I would say, 700 gold. As on my server, Bloodsail Buccaneers, we do not have the greatest twinking market because we're the role-playing server, a non-PvP server. So those items don't sell as high as they could on other servers. So just think about that though. If you look on your server and you look at Shadowfang and Assassin's Blade, and you see that they're worth 250 gold, 300 gold, 400 gold, whatever they are, multiply that by 4 and just think how much you could have gotten on your server with that. In addition to that, consider the fact that if these twink items were upscaled into higher bracket versions, whatever that might be, higher levels, you're only getting that much more gold. And so for all of those reasons, I believe, along with, of course, Shadowfang Keep's aesthetic beauty, that Shadowfang Keep is the best pound for pound dungeon in the game. Now, one thing I would recommend for new level 60s who are here to make gold and practice their power pulling, in this last pull here, target Odo the Blind Walker. Make yourself a target macro. You see I have all these question mark macros for different things, so I have several target macros as well. Target Odo the Blind Walker first, because his Howling Rage ability increases the size and strength of the mobs hitting you, which adds up a lot if he's left till the very end, like I leave him here, because by virtue of his health bar simply being higher than the other mobs who are being consecrated around him. Target him first, as I realized when I had horrible gear when I first entered here, that I would die when I tried pulling this with Odo at the end, because his Howling Rage just made the other mobs so strong that they brought me down. So just be wary of that. At this point, obviously, with nearly full tier 2 and all the shields and the Mage Blade, it's not a concern if you have this level of gear. Though if you have this level of gear, you're probably in here to power level your party or to farm twink items, so you're not too concerned about making your base gold here at this point. So at this point, you might be wondering, where do I go to vendor the loot? Do I use Field Repair Bot? Do I store alts here and trade to them? What sort of style do I use? Well, there's a reason, again, I believe Shadowfang Keep is such a great dungeon, is because for the Horde, they have so many cities, inns, etc., all near here because you're in Silver Pine Forest, a Horde-controlled zone. But I believe Shadowfang Keep is an Alliance-favored dungeon. And the reason I say that is you'll see in 1 minute where exactly I go to a vendor. It's a bit of an in-disguise vendor, shall I say. The reason for that is simple. Right beside you outside of Shadowfang Keep is a Worgen town. But these Worgen are in disguise if you're an Alliance player. They're neutral to you. They're friendly during the day, and at night at 9 p.m., they become unfriendly. So, what does that mean? It means that right now you see on the clock here server time, it's 3:46. Once this clock strikes 9 p.m., every Worgen who was once previously disguised to you as a human will become their true Worgen form. Now this only happens for Alliance players. Horde always see their Worgen form. They can't access the vendor you're about to see here, and this vendor is closer than any Horde vendor nearby. So there's the tailor. He paths around, and you actually get a chest here sometimes. There's the tailor. Now I go to the armor, because you can repair, and he's a consistent non-moving spawn. Now if you do have some mean Horde on your server who choose to kill the armor and the tailor, yes, you're SOL and you won't be getting vendored here, but there's actually another vendor up northeast from here in another area, and the brewmaster there, you can also vendor with him. So Alliance have, I believe, the two closest vendors to this area, just for me enforcing why I believe this dungeon is not just the best, but also Alliance favored. So with that said, you can see just how quickly and easily this dungeon can be power pulled. I want to say thank you to all of you. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.